Hey guys, to help run the forums, host the website, and travel, we've introduced a universal service fee for in-depth coverage, including this video. My goal is to be unbiased and transparent. It's a privilege to serve you. This is not an endorsement. Let's get into it. Hey guys, it's just a beautiful day in Southern California, and we're getting to check out a brand new one from Blix. This is called the Packa. You can just pack this thing up with all sorts of gear. We almost got like a yard sale happening over here, and it's just so much fun. It really gets your mind going, like, do I want a little bag, medium bags, you know, couple children's seats? They've got that Yep Maxi interface, so you can put two of them on without any of the adapters. Those are really awesome. And gosh, just looking at this thing, going over it with a fine-tooth comb, I was really impressed because the price point is $19.99. It's using a hub motor. This is a gearless direct drive hub motor from Shengyi. It's very durable, it's quiet, but there is a little bit of cogging drag. That's the case with all of these direct drive gearless motors. But in my experience, that allows them to keep the price a little bit lower and offer you throttle mode, which can be very useful if it's loaded up with gear and maybe you're trying to get this thing started. It is about 72 pounds with the default single battery right there on the down tube, 48 volts, 10.4 amp hours. But check it out, optional secondary battery pack to fully extend your range and maybe let you use that throttle more frequently, because it does drain the battery power a little bit more to use the throttle. So 48 volt, 14 amp hour battery pack. Looking at maybe like a $500 upgrade on that. Pretty neat that it has it, because I really haven't seen, you know, the dual battery concept with electric bikes is kind of new, and I haven't seen too many affordably priced, you know, still $2,000. I consider $1,500 and below sort of the affordable, but when we're talking about a cargo bike with this many features, I mean, it's got integrated lights by Spinninga, really nice stuff. So this is a Shendo 40 Lux, and it's positioned there on the fender so that if you do add one of these, that's that front platform there and maybe a basket on top, you're not going to block the light, and it's still going to point where you're steering. Okay, so nice light wired in so it runs off the battery or batteries. We've got a really interesting rear light, Flexio by Spinninga. This thing has like 27 little LEDs and then two big ones that go bright when you activate those brakes. So it's a safe bike, and that's something I really care about, especially if you're carrying along some, you know, precious cargo. And you can see that carried all the way through the bike. So check it out, reflective sidewall stripes on those tires. They've got puncture protection. We talked about the lights a little bit, but even the body position, a little bit more upright and relaxed. And we've got that adjustable angle stem, swept back, ergonomic comfort grips right here. To me, when I'm riding a bike, you know, and I'm thinking about kids or cargo and stuff, and you're just trying to stabilize, being able to hop forward and put your foot down and not have a bar that's going to maybe hang you up if you're a little bit shorter, that's key. And just being able to stabilize the bike. So body position does matter, but there is a little bit of a compromise here by giving you this, what I consider mid-step frame. You just don't have quite that structural strength as if they had a high step diamond. So there is a little bit of frame flex going on here. You know, there's a lot of weight at the rear end of this bike, and you can see it's totally overbuilt. The rack, all these additional tubing. This is standard gauge pannier hanger right there. Pannier blockers. It's got these running boards, bamboo decks. So it comes with those. They have an optional bamboo deck that would span this whole thing. And then look at all of these threaded eyelets. There's just so many. So I'm going to go through the accessories in a little bit, but I just wanted to take you on this virtual tour, like walking around the bike, looking at things up close. I can tell they scrutinized this design because check it out. There's like this really nice heavy duty double leg center kickstand. Okay. And a lot of times, you know, you need that if you're loading up kids or something on the back, right? That's a lot of weight. And yet they positioned it so that you can pedal backwards. Look at that, you're not getting pedal lock. So, you know, you're about to go for a ride and you're like, okay, and you're backing the bike up or something, and then the pedals collide, and that can be so frustrating. So I love that they did it just right. Like, this is totally custom. You can see that it's internally routed cables right here. They've got a deflopilator. This is a stabilizer spring for that front wheel. See, so it kind of pulls back towards the center. And even when you're riding, like, it keeps you a little bit more stable. Again, some frame flex. I've even experienced a little bit of speed wobble when I was riding with no hands, but that comes back to weight distribution. And I was doing the ride test with one of these Yep Maxi seats on, okay, and actually a rear cargo rack as well. So that does change it. I'm going to do some more ride tests here in a minute. I just want to be fair. Like, a lot of these cargo bikes, you're talking about something that's long, that's heavier. 72 pounds is not too bad in my opinion. Another 7 pounds if you get that optional secondary pack, but it can support up to 400 pounds, and it's going to change the dynamic. Even how you have the handlebars and the stem set up, it all plays a role. But one thing they've done to kind of balance all of that out, like in terms of comfort, they've gone with these slightly higher capacity or higher volume tires, 24 inches versus 26 or 27.5 or 28. 24, it brings the whole frame down closer to the ground. It also adds some strength because the smaller diameter, that's just how it works. Like a larger diameter, there's more flex and things that can happen. So you're achieving a lower standover, easier loading position, and then having two 24s versus some of these other cargo bikes, they have a smaller 20-inch rear wheel. The rack is even lower, but then these running boards can strike on curbs, and you can see there's already a little bit of a blemish there, even with the 24. So I feel like this is a good compromise for affordability, replacement. Then you only have to carry one tube size instead of two. And they do have that puncture protection I was talking about, and even 12 gauge spokes, so extra thick black. They match the hubs, the rims. The rims are fairly wide. Just a really good setup. It's a handsome bike. Plastic fenders, extra wide with these mud flaps, so if you're pedaling and you're turning and you accidentally kick that, it's not going to break, right? And yet the fender itself is fairly sturdy. This one, it was rattling a little bit, and I was talking to the founder of the company, Pontus, and he was like, yeah, we're actually going to have another piece of metal under here to reinforce it and to add strength for that headlight so it won't be vibrating as much. Keep that in mind while we're doing the ride test. And then your gear is going to be kept clean and dry because it also has that rear fender. And maybe if you're riding with a friend, they're not going to get water sprayed up into their face. So I definitely appreciate that. Two frame colors, right? So they call this one electric blue, and it's glossy. It looks beautiful, kind of matches the sky today. They also have one, it's kind of a gloss white. And for me, white is a really nice color because it adds to your visual footprint. I mean, you've already got the reflective sidewalls and the lights and stuff, but then having white frame, you're even more visible, especially at night, which is nice. And while I do like this headlight, and while it does point where you're riding, it doesn't have a little window. Some of the newer lights, they even have side windows, which is nice. But coming back to the reflective sidewalls and the paint color, that's where they're making up for it. So that's good. We've got a 48 tooth chain ring down here. Okay, they've got a rust-resistant chain and a chain guide. So that's these two metal plates, one on each side. So if you're going over some bumpy terrain, maybe going off-road or something, going on the grass, the chain's not going to bounce off as easily. And that's important because look how long that chain line is. I mean, that's just how it works when you have a cargo bike, even a midtail. So there's, a little bit of bounce here already happening. And I did see some nicks on the right chainstay. Maybe they'll put a sticker or something there, but if not, you can get a piece of plastic tape, clear plastic box tape, and put it on there just so your frame won't get nicked up over time. That's something I was thinking about. We have a Shimano Acera derailleur, which is 3 steps up in the Shimano line. So it's a little bit better, a little bit more reliable, and maybe shifts a little bit easier. 7-speed cassette, 11 to 32 teeth. Not too bad. It's definitely an upgrade from some of the really entry-level stuff, which is like 14 to 28 tooth. So that larger 32 tooth combined with that 48 tooth chain ring up there, that means you're going to be able to start and climb a little bit easier. It's important to have those extra gears when you've got a heavy loaded up electric bike. And then even that motor, that's about a 10-pound motor if you took it out of the wheel and stuff. So there is definitely more of a rear heavy thing going on, and that's just how it works with these cargo bikes. I've measured all the specs on this thing, okay? So like standover height, minimum saddle height, for those of you that are maybe a little bit more petite and you want to be able to put your feet down and stabilize the bike. Having a throttle means that you don't necessarily have to get full leg extension and pedal super efficiently. You can just rely on the motor to help you get going. I've measured width and length. Okay, I think it's about 81 inches long. It's a little bit longer, but not quite as long as some of the full-length, full-size cargo bikes. So back to that compromise, I think these midtails are a neat phenomenon. They're trying to save you that space, but give you all that utility and kind of create almost like a minivan experience. Definitely appreciate that. And again, the weight would go up by 7 pounds if you have this optional pack right here. Comfort's a big deal for me, and this is an all aluminum alloy frame. I think it's 6061, but they do have a steel fork, which adds a little bit of strength and even some vibration dampening qualities. And you can see there's extra eyelets right here. That's because they're going to sell an ABIS frame lock, so that can mount right here, and it will put a bar through the spokes, so it'll immobilize your bike without having to like lock it up with all the cables and stuff. And on the rear, we've got 15mm nuts, so no quick release there, but there is quick release on the front. So that optional cafe frame lock is a really good option to secure the wheel and just keep people from tampering with your bike too much if you're going into the cafe and grabbing a coffee or something like that. So in addition to those eyelets, we've got some other eyelets right down here for maybe a pannier bag in the future. There's all kinds of possibilities. And then this is the mounting point for that front rack. And if you don't use it, they've got this nice little Blix branded badge right there. Coming back to just this bike overall and comfort, the tire pressure does have a decent range. It's like 35 to 65 PSI. So you could lower it a little bit. Just keep in mind, if you're getting up to that like 400-pound capacity, you don't want to lower it too much because you could get a pinch flat, which means you come into contact with like a sharp curb or something, and it pushes in on the tire and it pinches the inner tube, and it can have like a snake bite. So it'll have two little holes that leak, and then even if you do have the puncture resistant tire, you can still pinch that inner tube. So just keep that in mind as far as tire pressure, how full that thing is. And do check them occasionally if you haven't ridden for a while. It's my advice. This is that steel fork we were talking about, the vibration dampening qualities. We've got the upright handlebar, the tool-free adjustable stem, and everything I talked about. But the other way that you could make this even more comfortable if you wanted to, if you have a sensitive back and neck like I do, I've been in some car accidents over the year and some skiing accidents and stuff, and my back and stuff, I just want to be comfortable. So they do sell these things called suspension seat posts. So this is a 31.6mm rigid post, and you could swap that out for like a $50 or $100 seat post suspension and give you even more kind of comfort. And this is already a padded Velo saddle with some rubber bumpers. It's not too bad, but those are things that I really care about, so I'm pointing them out. We've got these plastic Velo pedals with rubber tread, probably pretty good for that neighborhood kind of cruising type of riding that people might be doing. And let's see here, there's so much to talk about on this bike. I think the thing I wanted to close on was really the brakes. They've got 180mm rotors, which is good. You know, that's a pretty good size. Disc brakes are nice because they tend to stay clean and they're raised a little bit compared to rim brakes. These are mechanical, so you can adjust them yourself or maybe get a friend to help you out with if they have a wrench set, like the hex keys. Versus hydraulic, it's easier to pull, right? This cable, it runs all the way through that housing, all the way up here to this brake lever. So you have to, over time, especially if water and dust and stuff builds up and the cable stretches and stuff, that you're pulling kind of a long ways. So the rear brake tends to require more hand effort than the front brake, in my experience. But again, these are somewhat adjustable by yourself versus hydraulic, and that's one of the ways that they're able to save some money. That's one of the compromises. But they've actually gone with really nice brake levers. These are 4-finger. They've got a little rubberized edge, so your fingers won't get as cold. They've got a little bell built in. I love that. And they even have a motor inhibitor, right? So there's a secondary wire here, and there's a little switch inside, and it says, okay, anytime the rider pulls that brake, we want the motor to cut out completely. We just, it's a safety thing, right? Especially with the throttle. Imagine you bump that. As long as you're holding the brake, nothing will happen. Okay, so that's really nice, and they've kind of overloaded that feature. In addition to having a motor inhibitor, it also goes bright on that rear light. So there's 2 big LEDs, and they flash to life really bright. It's a pretty neat setup, and I'm going to try to show that later. Battery is such a big deal on this bike. The fact that you can have 2 of these things, 48 volt, 10 amp hour capacity on that one, and then 48 volt, 14 amp hour capacity. It's over a kilowatt hour if you get both of them. And they're allowing you to tap into that energy for more than just the lights. You can also run off this little full-size USB type A port right there. Okay, so imagine you got your phone and you've got like a GPS app or maybe a little boombox stereo setup. They have all these cool accessories online, or some Christmas lights, if it's the holidays. There's so many possibilities. You can plug into that. 5 volts, 500 milliamps. Some of the other USB ports, like if you have an iPhone or iOS device, I think it requires 5 volts, 1,000 milliamps. So I haven't fully tested this. I can't say for sure, but I think it might be more of a maintain Android or use a portable electronic. They do have a secondary USB port right there on the side of the battery. Same thing, full size. I think it's 5 volt, 500 milliamp. And you can remove that battery and you could take it with you if you're having a picnic, and you could charge your little electronics. You know, I think that's so cool. It's really opening things up to you. Again, in the future, it'd be neat if it was like 5 volt, 1000 milliamps. This is not the only bike that is kind of working around that, trying to figure out how to balance that electronics setup. And a lot of these parts are actually kind of picked and pieced together, but the bike has been customized. They've been working on this since 2014, and I'm with the founder here. This is Pontus Malmberg. How's it going, man?
Good, how are you doing?
Woo, there's so much to talk about.
That was a lot.
Right? Yeah. It's a very exciting bike. It sounded like you had this design philosophy of like safety and power and approachability. You know, what was the other thing that was on your mind when you were setting out to make a cargo bike like this?
Well, obviously the utility friendliness of it. So being able to really combine like a lot of different accessories.
Like modular. Yep. Some of them, like, let's come over to these accessories here. Yep. Like this is that front rack that we were talking about, and it's frame mounted. So it doesn't mount to the handlebars. It doesn't like turn when you steer, which can be a little bit confusing because you're like, I'm turning, but that it stays straight. But that's actually the way you need to do it to really load this up with gear. And that's a 50-pound capacity right there. And I think you said the rear rack is 175?
Up to 150.
Up to 150. Yep. Okay, and then combined all together is 400.
Yep.
That's like the rider, and you can kind of figure out where to balance everything. Yep. But coming back to this rack, see how it has additional eyelets on it too. You can mount one of these platforms. You can mount this basket instead of the rack. Here's a basket that has a bamboo deck. I really like the kind of the water bottle holder here on your little front basket. That is so cool. It reminds me of your other bike. What was it called that has the
Avenue?
The Avenue, yeah. And it has a little holster and stuff. And then the bags and stuff. I really like the panniers too. You can see there, it comes with 2 of them basically, right? So we just flop this over the rear rack like that. And look at that. Fits really nicely. There's even room for maybe putting this and then a child seat or something like that. And Pontus was showing me it's got these metal loops, so you can turn this into like a kind of a hip pack where you have a strap and then throw it over your shoulder.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, super practical in that way.
Yeah, and
also,
stylish.
Yeah, thank you. Also to highlight, I think, is that you can combine these with baskets mounted to the rear rack.
Okay, let's do that. Let's like toss it on and mix and match for a second here.
Yeah, so you see that the top section of the pannier here is open, which means that you can actually install the basket while still having the pannier hanging on to the rear rack.
Okay.
It's just another way of combining.
So like,
load it.
any of these things that could set on top of it?
Right, so if I would grab this basket, for example.
Let's do it.
You can install it this way.
Huh.
You can have it here.
Wow.
If you don't want it to be, you know, locked into the basket, you can have the basket in the rear, the pannier in the front, or the other way around and so on.
Well, and then I love these child seats here. Yep does a really good job. Maybe you can swap this for the child seat. See, that's that window that I was talking about. So you sort of set this on, and it might be a two-handed thing, but kind of sets down like this, and then there's that little clip. Will you help me out, Pontus? It's getting caught in the pannier hanger.
In right here. You have 2 stabilizers on the side, and then you just use a twister to turn it on, or to fasten it, I mean.
There we go.
Clips in.
Kind of goes down and then
just like that.
Fits it. And then turn that little... Yeah, it's that easy. It's that easy. And there you go. Now you have this. So I just thank you so much, man. It's fun to see this real time, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, but you know, it's kind of cool, right? This is how I did my test ride earlier with a little kid seat. And in my experience, if you do have only one kid seat, I tend to like move it forward. Like the more weight that you can get low and center on the bike, the better for handling. So in this case, unless your kid's swinging at you, you know, and you need that, you need the extra space, put some distance on it. There's another accessory that we were talking about that's like this loop bar rack. So that's, maybe this is for like infants, and then you have like a toddler bar thing and these padded seats, and even adults could ride on there if they're under 150 pounds, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Sweet. Okay, so, you know, lots of cool stuff here. While we're on the subject of everything, I guess, this is the charger, 3 amps. It's a little bit faster than the standard 2 amp charger, which is great when you have 2 batteries. But one of the downsides of the different battery design that they've got here is that they aren't fully integrated like Bosch and some of these other systems. I think Yamaha has a design where you plug in one place, charges both batteries. Not the case here. You have to charge them separately. Also, they have 2 separate keys, so 2 different locking cores. That means there's extra keys floating around. And if you get that optional like frame lock for the front, that's 3 keys. So there's just, you know, and imagine you have kids and there's all this stuff. Keep track of those keys, right? That's one of the considerations that I have. And also just, I talked a little bit about the frame flex. This is still a heavier bike, but I think they've done something pretty incredible for the price, and really thought through a lot of those details. Okay, Pontus, is there anything you feel like I missed or we should go into more?
You covered a lot.
I did, yeah.
Maybe I just want to highlight what we really try to achieve with the bike in terms of finding like a really good balance between how accessible the bike is, easy to handle and so on, but still having a really rider friendliness to it. So what I mean by that is that you have a really low center of gravity and a really low step over height or low frame, so you can easily get on and off.
Yeah.
But we still chose, a good balance with, for example, the 24-inch wheels, so that it's fairly easy to ride longer distances too.
Well, and when you say that, okay, so a larger wheel diameter, they tend to have a nice rolling momentum. They tend to be a little bit more stable. Sometimes the small ones are very twitchy. Right. And this has a lower attack angle. So like a wider diameter means that the attack angle is lower, which means you can span cracks and go over bumps and things a little bit more comfortably. It doesn't like fall into the cracks, it spans them. Does that sound right?
Yeah, no, exactly. So it's just finding that good balance between how easy it is to ride long distances, but it's still very easy to get on and off and load a lot of things with a low center of gravity.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Anything else you feel like we didn't highlight before I go through the display?
Just maybe the overall design that's just very like Blix focused, that we're trying to make bikes that also looks good. I think
that's true.
That went into this
and look at the battery. I've never seen that mid-mounted battery like color match to the frame. I'm gonna actually try to show you guys how this comes off. So you put the key in, you turn it, and then you pull on this little handle and see how it comes at an angle. That way you don't bump into the frame, and they can keep this top tube a little bit lower for that easy step over that he was talking about. But just the color, that like blue that they went for, that isn't free, right? The fact that they color match that to me is a big deal. And there's that 10.5 amp capacity, 48 volts, so a little bit more efficient. And then he said there's a 22 amp motor controller on this bike, which is going to be nice for, empowering the motor and getting you up to 40 Newton meters. Apparently that's the peak torque when I was looking at their stats. And there's a little charge level indicator right there. Lots to say. I've seen this battery before. It's not perfect. I mean, if you look at where the crank arm is and then where the charging port is, if someone accidentally kicks that while you've got the charger plugged in, it could kind of bend or maybe even break that interface. So be careful about that. Make sure you get that rubber cover seated properly. And then, again, same thing up here. There is an on-off switch on this battery, which could be nice if you're not using it, just to help extend its life so it's not like phantom power draw over time. One thing I've heard as far as storing and caring for these lithium-ion battery packs is that you want to keep them in a cool, dry location. Of course, try not to drop them. But like extreme heat, extreme cold can kind of degrade the cells a little bit. And with a bike this big, you might not be able to park it inside where it's like temperature controlled. So if this is in your garage, consider storing the batteries somewhere else, just to kind of keep them, again, temperature level. And then if you haven't ridden it for a while, or you're not going to, like maybe the winter's coming, you're putting it away for a while, back to the storage thing, keep the battery at like kind of full or at least half full, so that it's not like getting down to that zero and then kind of dying, sort of, right? Like that can kind of mess up with the battery. And we were talking about that roughly $400-500 replacement cost. We're doing this review and we're timing it with you're having like a crowdfunding launch for this, right?
Correct.
Okay, so I'm excited for you. What platform are you going to use?
It's going to be on Indiegogo.
Indiegogo?
Yep.
I don't always review crowdfunded bikes because things can change. So this is my like warning to you guys. I trust Blix. They're sold through a wide, like a whole range of shops in the United States and maybe even Europe. You're from like Finland? Is that Sweden?
Yeah.
Sweden. I was so close. I'm from Norway, like my ancestors. So it's like, all up in that area.
Yeah. So we're launching it on Indiegogo, but it will be launched in a production mode, I think it's called, which means that we already have like a working sample and we're getting ready for, full production.
So you promise they will get the product, right?
100%.
Right. Are you actually selling them through shops or shipping direct, or what's the plan?
You can buy both online and through shops, which is our model for all our bikes. Whatever works for you the best is kind of our approach to it.
And what's your warranty?
So for this one here, it's going to be a comprehensive 1 year
cool
warranty covering everything on the bike.
Not bad. Okay, sweet. That's kind of like their other bikes. I think I'm gonna do the display panel now. Cool. Will you actually, for the ride test, can we take off the? We're gonna just take off the child seat so I can get a feel for how it handles. So this is the display. It does swivel a little bit, so you can adjust for glare, which is nice. Not removable. So if you're parked at a bike rack, it could take some sun damage. It could, it's water resistant, but someone could scratch it a little bit. So just keep that in mind. Sometimes I put my helmet over my handlebars and buckle it at the bottom just as a deterrent. And then powering it on, you use this little ring. There's up, down, and M, which might stand for mode. I'm gonna hold M for a second. Boots to life pretty quickly. And there's an energy bar, right? And it says B1. That's because it's drawing from battery 1. The display is synced up, so it actually draws pretty evenly from both of these batteries. As one goes down about 5% lower than the other, it switches, and then that one goes down for 5%, and then it switches. So they're trying to keep that even, so you aren't just cycling one battery over and over and over and wearing it out, the other one not getting any love. That's a pretty sophisticated feature. I'm not used to seeing that, again, on kind of a value-priced product like this. The energy bar here, even though it looks like there's 10 ticks, they're really only 5. Okay, they've got all these extra little like markings, but they go down in 20% chunks, which there's room for opportunity. Like, there's room for more precision there, right? I would like to see like a percentage indicator or 10 ticks for real, not just like the infographic thing here that's fake. It's a minor complaint. And when you've got 2 batteries, hopefully you've got plenty of juice to get home. But this would be, it could be a difficult time if you ran completely out of batteries. So bring that charger along. I mean, that thing's less than 2 pounds. It's small. Put that in the bag. I would bring that all the time just in case. Speed, miles per hour right now, but we can learn how to change that in a second. Pedal assist 1 is the default, and the throttle is active. Okay, so from the get-go, but it's limited by the level of assist. So you're gonna get more power if you arrow up to 5. So let's try that again. Yeah, extra powerful. Again, 40 Newton meters of torque peak there, 22 amp controller, not bad. You can also take it down to 0. And you're like, okay, the throttle doesn't work, no pedal assist. Why would you do that? Well, so you can run the lights, right? For safety. I think that's pretty cool. Or just check how far you've gone and stuff. I also want to mention, I talked about there being like some cogging resistance with the rear motor design, but that's going to take the edge off if you are coasting down a hill and maybe not wear the brake pads quite as quickly. It's a minor thing, and I'm kind of squeezing out a pro from that, but it's just something worth considering that this is a bulletproof motor. I mean, these tend to be very reliable, just a little more heavy and a little bit of drag there. So over here it says manual, and that's talking about the lights. So if I press the up button here for a couple seconds, it activates that headlight icon, and the display is actually backlit. And now we can see that Ascendo headlight looking pretty good. Will you come pull the brake levers? Because I got to show this rear light. Look at that. Those are all the little LEDs. And then boom, there's the big LED. I love that. So people are, hopefully they're gonna notice you a little bit better. And it's positioned in a pretty well protected place. So bags would kind of surround it and go on top of it, but it's not gonna get bumped as easily. That's a really nice light. And it's even semi-visible from the side. So remember I was talking about the headlight, there weren't windows on the side, but this one does kind of have an angle and a nice big reflector. Okay, so coming back up to the display, we have odometer. Now, if I start to press this M button, things change. So it goes from speed to average speed, and odometer to trip A. Now if I press it again, it goes from average speed to max speed, and then trip B down here, right? So there's a lot you can do, and it's just one button. You just press, press, press. There's even walk mode. So if I hold the arrow, the down arrow, the motor kicks on. It gives you like 6 kilometers per hour, roughly 4 miles per hour of assist, because again, maybe this thing's all loaded up and you're trying to stabilize some kids or something. That way you don't have to push the whole bike, but you could always use that throttle as well, as long as you're in one of the 5 assist levels. Now there are settings in this too. So if you press up and down simultaneously, the ST1, it lets you switch from miles to kilometers. So you can go to metric if you want. And then we press M, it goes to the next thing. It says, what's the top speed? 32 kilometers per hour. That's class 2. 20 mile per hour limit, but you can lower it. So check this out. If you feel like I want to save energy and I just want to feel safer, you can take that down. You don't have to go full speed on this bike. I think that's pretty cool. And then wheel size, 24 inches. And then this is some other diagnostic stuff that we don't really need. It goes back to miles and kilometers. So if I want to get out of this, I just hold the M button for a couple seconds. Boom, done, right? That's it. We've gone through everything. Whew. Except for the cadence sensor. I want to give you a close-up. See this little black housing? That's the cadence sensor. So there's like 12 little magnets in there, and it just measures that you're pedaling. It doesn't measure how hard you're pushing or anything. It's just about motion. So as long as you're moving those cranks, the motor's going to kick on. It's going to give you a little bit of assist, and it kind of encourage you to pedal, and that's going to give you the best range using pedal assist versus throttle. But I like how compact that is and how well positioned it is. It's in the old days, there were bigger discs that had physical magnets you could see and they could get bumped out of place. So that's a nice little upgrade. I think that's it. Why don't I just hop on and actually ride this thing, right? I'm gonna push it forward and the kickstand automatically stows. Pretty good clearance here. You can see that it sticks out to the sides a little bit, and then if we're riding near those low curbs, it might make contact, but that's not much different than most of these cargo bikes that I've ridden. You don't have to leave the key in, but I don't want to forget it. So I'm just gonna make a little loop around the facility here. I'll be back in a second, dude.
All right, see you.
Okay. There we go. I'm gonna go off this curb here, and you might hear a little bit of, there's a little bit of bounce going on. I heard the chain bouncing up and down because it is a longer chain, and also that fender, which Pontus was telling me, you know, it's gonna be a little bit better reinforced on the final build. And display's looking really nice here. I'm gonna do my no hands test. So I'll get it up to speed here, you know, 15 miles per hour. There we go. See, so it's feeling pretty good. But before, when I had the seat on, there was like a little bit of wobble that could happen, and then just a little bit of frame flex. It's just a long bike, you know, that's one of the trade-offs, but it handles pretty well. Okay guys, from here you can see that 48 tooth chainring with that nice alloy guide. I'm gonna pedal along, stow the kickstand. You might hear the chain bounce a little bit, but I'm gonna shift through the gears. One of the neat things about a hub motor is that, again, you got the throttle, kind of instant power, and it's separate from the drivetrain, so you're not putting as much wear and tear on the chain and the cassette as you might be with a mid-drive. A little bit of squeak happening with those disc brakes, not too bad, and they might not be broken in quite yet, but if you want to avoid squeaky feeling or that sound, try not to touch the discs because they can get your oils from your fingers and stuff, and that can kind of dilute the pads. Ooh. Okay guys, I've been cruising around for a little while in this beautiful neighborhood here, and I'm remembering some of these like important things for any cargo bike, especially if it has the running boards. Those are removable, but even with that kickstand, imagine that you've got your foot down like that and then you start to roll the bike forward like that and then you try to pick it up. You can kind of hurt your Achilles tendon right there, or just kind of run over your foot, and this is heavy. So you know, with the throttle and everything, especially that it's live at standstill like this, it's not the most powerful because, you know, again, it's tied to what level of assist you're on, but I just wanted to point that out because I wouldn't want you to get hurt and you know, hurt your foot. Show that standover height, right? Plenty of room. The other benefit of this chain guide, aside from keeping the chain from bouncing off, is that it's going to protect your skirt if you're wearing one, and maybe your pant legs from touching that chain and getting kind of greasy or snagged up. Just do another frame flex test. It's not too bad. Maybe I overemphasize that a little bit, but it is noticeable when you come from like a sporty bike that's high step and you get on one of these. It's kind of like there's a little bit of bend going on. I'm gonna do some throttle mode. We don't have a big hill right here, but we do at the end of the street. So I thought that would be fun to check out. With these wider tires, you could actually take it off-road. And maybe I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna go freestyle here, take it down in this off-road section. Try not to get high-centered here. Not bad, one-handed braking. And then it's not losing traction because the tires are kind of slick. They're sort of efficient, but they're also designed to be, you know, a little bit wider and give you that stability off-road. I'm actually very impressed. This is doing really well. Oh, we don't want to go through the swamp though. Let's turn this around. There we go. Nice that I got the throttle here to help me. Okay, so I'm in the highest level of assist because that's gonna give us the most motor power. Just angle that display up a little bit. I'm gonna try to climb that hill. This could be a challenge. I'm gonna start kind of low speed. You do want a little bit of speed because the gearless hub motor doesn't generate quite as much torque at standstill. So here we go, I'm blasting it. Struggling, oh, not quite making it, so I'm helping a little bit. It's definitely, you know, we're getting there, but not without a little bit of push help. So that's another one of those considerations, just in terms of raw power at standstill. This could totally make it if I came in with a little bit of momentum, but if you have to stop on a hill, make sure you shift it down to those low gears so you can jump in and pedal again. So we're gonna go for a little ride here. Pontus is gonna hop on that bike, but before you shove off, dude, I just wanna, I mean, it's really neat to see how custom this frame is, right? Like, you're noticing there's this line right here that ties in, it goes all the way back, and then it kind of like V's off, and they've got these triangles to add a lot of strength. It's just yeah, it's pretty. I really appreciate that. And I mentioned the pannier hanger before, but even this battery, if your seat is relatively high, it looks like you could get that off. You might still have to raise the saddle or turn it or something like that to access that other battery, but it's just, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of design inspiration going on here. Did you guys like mean to do that? You kind of tied it all together?
Yeah, for sure. We tried to find, again, here like a really good balance between, you know, structure, utility friendly, but also the visual design of it.
Yeah, it's a beautiful bike, definitely. So let's do a little ride. He's just gonna be on that. I'm gonna follow him along. Beautiful. We get turning radius going on there. Looking good. Pontus is a pretty tall guy too, so, you know, I think the seat could come up a little bit higher if we wanted to. He seems pretty comfortable on that. He's getting good leg extension, so it seems like a good range of options, whether you're a shorter person or you're someone who, you know, maybe a little longer inseam. There we go. Looking good, buddy. Yeah. Ride by. I think that's it, you guys. For the full written review, I'll see you back at ElectricBikeReview.com. Again, this is a crowdfunding bike. Little things could change, but this is a more established brand. So I've measured the width, I've measured the length, and I should mention, it looks like those running boards can be taken off if you don't want them. You know, that could reduce a little weight right there, but it's cool that they come with that, with the wood decks, because that's not free, right? That's another little upgrade. So anyway, all that stuff is back at ElectricBikeReview.com, and there's a section in the forums and the comments here. I welcome your feedback, especially once this is being delivered and stuff. Please chime in, help each other out. I love you guys. Ride safe. See you next time.